Greetings, fifth graders. This is Unit 6, Week 1, and we have kind of a special week this week because we're going to be learning more about history, especially World War II. So it's kind of going to be an exciting week to do some learning about some history both in our country and in the world. So let's first talk about the fact that this is a new unit for us. This is our LinkedIn unit. And the big idea is, how are we all connected? And to start out with, there's a poem here. Actually, it's not a poem, it's part of a speech given by President Roosevelt on January 6, 1945. And Franklin Roosevelt was the president for the United States during the time that we went into World War II. And he was a pretty good speaker. And one of the things that he did was he would use repetition to help make his point more clear to people and to get people to listen to his words more closely. So here's what he said. He said, "Peace can be made and kept only by the united determination of free and peace-loving peoples who are willing to work together, willing to help one another, willing to respect and tolerate, and to try and understand one another's opinions and feelings." So this was from his State of the Union address that he gave to talk to the American people shortly after we had entered the war. And this week we're going to be talking about how do different groups of people contribute to a cause. And doing so creates an opportunity for us to use people's differences and backgrounds and diversity in order to contribute to a cause. So we're going to be using their talents and skills and knowledge that people have in order to get something done. And in this photograph, what we see is two women working in a factory, and they were known as riveters, and you can tell that they're riveters because they're using their drill bits here to rivet into an airplane. I believe that's what this is working on. And what they did was they offered lots of contributions that normally men made, but the men were off to war. So the women had to jump in and help support the war effort. And during World War II, everyone had to pool their talents and resources to contribute to the war effort. And instead of their usual diversity of products, some factories helped by making weapons and war equipment and that sort of thing, rather than what they normally made. And of course, with men away at war, many of the women went to work in these factories in order to make money for their families because the men were off defending our country. And you might have seen this poster before. This is Rosie the Riveter. She was a cultural icon during World War II, and she represented the women who worked in factories and shipyards during World War II, many of whom produced munitions, which would be the supplies that we would have used with weaponry and other war supplies. And these women sometimes took entirely new jobs that replaced the male workers who had joined into the military. And this particular poster was created by a famous artist by the name of Norman Rockwell. And it came from the cover of the May 29th, 1943 edition of the Saturday Evening Post, which was a magazine. And this is known as the first visual image to incorporate the name Rosie as Rosie the Riveter. So he created this image to help inspire women and the rest of the country to do their part in order to support the war. Some of these ladies were actual Rosie the Riveters. They built bridges. You can see it in the background there. They were probably also building ships, which is also way here in the background, some of the larger ships. So the women were instrumental in helping to keep our country supplied with what they needed. And these ladies were tough. These women were even more tough because they obviously are, that's right, polishing weapons. So these would have been bombs that would have been dropped, and they're actually making sure that they would have been sealed and able to go into the planes to be dropped efficiently. So yeah, interesting job there. So let's jump into our vocabulary for the week. And remember, you are to write your words in your 3-subject notebook so that you can have them for your test. The first word this week is the word bulletin. It's a noun. And a bulletin is a short announcement of the latest news. And in this sentence, we have Kip posted a bulletin in the neighborhood about his missing dog. The next word we have is contributions. It's also a noun. Contributions are gifts of money, time, or effort given to a cause. And in the picture here, we have the school art exhibit will feature contributions from many student artists. The next word we have is diversity. It's a noun, and diversity is a great difference or variety. And in our picture here, there was a great diversity of breeds at the dog show, from really small to really big. The next word we have is enlisted. This is a verb, and we can tell it's a verb because it does end with ed, so this is the past tense of the word enlist. But you will need to make sure that you use the word enlisted when you do your building vocabulary. Enlisted means to be enrolled in the armed forces or to be signed up to help a person or a cause. So citizens who are enlisted into the Army are sworn in before they begin their training. And you can see them raising their right hands and pledging to serve their country. Now, as we did last week, there's information for your question, which will be at the end of this video. You'll need to answer a question on Schoology, and here's what you need to answer the question. World War II began for the United States on December 7th, 1941, when Japan bombed the American fleet in Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor is located in Hawaii. On December 11th, 1941, Germany declared war against the United States as well. Our next vocabulary word is intercept. Intercept is a verb. It means to stop something from moving from one place or person to another. And in our picture here, the player jumped up to intercept the pass and prevented the touchdown. Our next word is operations. Operations is a noun in this case. Operations are plans or processes for doing something. And in this picture, we have a crew of workers began operations to clean up after the disaster. Our next word is recruits. And in this case, it's a noun, even though it ends with an S. It means that there's more than one recruit. Recruits are people who have signed up to do a job or to work into the military. In this picture, the officer addressed the recruits as they prepared for training. Our next vocabulary word is survival. And in this case, survival is a noun. It is the act of continuing to live. And in this picture, a first aid kit, a blanket, and a water are important for survival in an emergency. Some of you might have a survival kit at your house. Okay. It's going to be your turn when you end this video here shortly. You will need to answer the question on Schoology. And remember that information is this little bit that I gave you here a little bit ago. And finally, I wanted to show you this little picture. This is a picture of a hospital ward during the war. And you can kind of see that it was small and that these people were working hard to take care of the soldiers back then. And you can also see that it was a pretty cramped space to work in, but all those people were working still for that common cause. Okay, this is the end of your video. Be sure to answer your question on the assignment. Thanks for listening and have some great learning this week.